Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Chris Pronger coming up here in a moment. The Jays back in action tonight. Seeing Aaron Sanchez has arrived down in Buffalo to start pitching with the Bisons. And, you know, that story we kind of glossed over yesterday. We were talking about the Leafs a lot in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but he hasn't pitched in a couple years, and, you know, it's been a while since he was a mainstay in the majors and a mainstay with the Jays.
I'll tell you, the follow-up comment to the crappy end of the Leaf season is, now the Jays suck too. They're worse. And it's like, what a miserable, like.
Yeah, it's really not a good scene here in Toronto, man. I mean,
it used to be like a
to
sweet,
go back to the well. But.
Yeah, sweet spot. It's like, oh, the Leafs had a chance, but they didn't do it. Now the Jays are great. Let's watch them all summer. Now it's like, tough ending for the Leafs, and the Jays are just rotten. I hate them. It's like, okay, positivity.
Yeah. Been a bad week. Yeah, it's been a bad, and then you throw in the Chad Kelly
story.
TFC, like it's been a grind. Like everybody's been a grind right now. You know.
Yeah, I mean the Kelly story. You know, if you're not familiar, the CFL announced today they've suspended him for a minimum of 9 games for violating a gender-based violence policy. You know, so it had to do to something. You know, he had some relationship or something happened with a former employee of the team.
Difficult to comment, first of all, because we don't know details and we don't know exactly what happened. So to say he's this or that, I never comment unless I literally sit down with the person and know the details of what happened. Regardless, the league thought they thought of it,
suspended,
and he's gone for 9 games.
Exactly.
So he's got to deal with that.
He's got to deal with that, and he's got to go through training, and he's got to convince Randy Ambrosi and the CFL.
Yeah, he does.
That he's, you know,
fit,
obviously fit to return. Yeah, exactly, and has paid some sort of penance and also has rehabilitated whatever needs to be rehabilitated, because that's an interesting, you know, way of phrasing it. Minimum 9 games. And again,
that's basically, if anything else pops up, don't even think about it. There's going to be more.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the reigning MOP. This is the highest paid player in the league. The Argos paid a fortune to keep him around. I think, you know, he had a great season last year. Obviously, it was a disaster in that playoff game. You know, a disaster in the playoff game. But this is, and it's much heavier than football, clearly. But this is your star quarterback that, again, we talk about Keith Pelley. Keith Pelley just got on the job, and the Leafs are in a tough spot. The market's not happy about what's going on there. No. The Raptors are obviously in a tough spot. I think they're years away from being competitive, let alone, you know, chasing an NBA championship. They're probably at least a couple of years away, if everything goes right and they put the right pieces together, from being competitive. They're probably 4 or 5 years away from being championship caliber competitive. And again, that's if everything breaks their way.
Yeah.
And now you have the Argos, who have been a really good team for years, and the face of the team is Chad Kelly, and he's been suspended for 9 games. So that's obviously going to have an effect on the way they operate, you know, what happens with their team. All of this is on the desk of Keith Pelley and Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. It's a really kind of strange and emotionally driven time for the fans, and I'm sure for the organization.
Well, that's why I think you have to take some the luxury they do have is some time for the most part. Now you got the draft coming up, but you have people in place right now, and unless, you know, Pelly's going to make massive change. I'm talking about the Leafs. Like, if you're going to make massive changes, you probably do it sooner than later. But you know, there is things coming up on your docket that you have to get your ducks in a row for, and that is the draft. That's free agency, and you have to have a plan moving forward. And, you know, Keith Pelley he's been on the job, what, a month?
Yeah.
Like,
the Raptors the same thing, Noodles.
Yeah,
like they may now, if someone hops over them in the lottery, the 7th pick is going to San Antonio for Jakob Poeltl. You know, like that you talk about the cherry on top of what could just be a disastrous month.
That's a kick in the junk, man.
Yeah. I mean, and I understand, you know, the counter is they could be bad next year, and then that could hand over to San Antonio, but I think it's top 6 protected for a few years, and then it becomes a second-round pick, maybe multiple second-round picks. But, you know, that's kind of what's staring at them here. That's why it's so important for I think the Raptors to get out of it, TFC to get out of it. The Argos have to navigate this. You've got the World Cup coming in a couple of years. That's at BMO Field. MLSE owns that. Obviously, they're working with the levels of government to make sure that's prepared. And then you got the Leafs, which in the next 12 to 18 months, they have some really important decisions to make on how they're going to get this together and moving in the right direction. And, welcome home, Keith, because you're the guy at the top. Keith Pelly's at the top. All right, we got a couple of games in the Stanley Cup playoffs tonight. We got the draft lottery tonight. Again, John Buccigross tweeted out a picture of a board, and then he deleted it and came back and said, "We're just rehearsing. The draw will be at 5:30." I think everyone will believe that when they see it. If it's the same board, you've got conspiracy theories going crazy tonight.
Yeah.
But here is Hockey Hall of Famer, Stanley Cup champ, friend of the show, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Here's Chris Pronger. How you doing, Chris?
Great. How you guys doing? Is there anything going on in the world?
Oh, there's a lot going on up here, man. A lot going on up here, as I'm sure you can imagine.
It's all fun stuff, Prongs. It's all fun stuff.
Oh, yeah. A lot of broken ankles after Game 7, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've been on the right side of it, wrong side of it, the locker clean-out interviews. I'm sure after you won a cup, that must have been a lot of fun to go and you can say whatever you want. Everyone's just going to celebrate you. And you lose in the first round. I'm sure it's probably the last thing you want to do. What do you recall of your locker clean out talking to the media days?
They may have been a little surly. You're never happy when this happens. Certainly, if we're referencing Toronto, you're coming back from 3-1. You feel like you've got all the momentum on your side, and then something as unfortunate as that, winning goal in overtime happens, and nobody in their right mind. Austin Matthews might be happy, just he had a great year. But again, even if I'm referencing myself, I won the Hart Trophy. We lost in the first round, and I was miserable. I don't think they're going to take much away from this year, other than here we go again. And unfortunately, that's the predicament they're in.
Mm-hmm. Prongs, if you were listening to a bunch of guys talking about the Leafs' problems and why they don't have success in the playoffs, what would you finish your sentence with if you said, the reason why they don't win is what?
Poor use of resources. You
Explain
can't
that.
pay 4 forwards over $10 million. Over half of your team's payroll is in 4 players, and they all play up front, and a lot of them are playing together. So you're not spreading the dollars throughout your lineup, and you're not deep enough. You don't have enough in the playoffs. Typically, the top 2 lines cancel each other out. Sometimes they don't, and that's when you have elite players on your roster that outshine the opponent. But in this case, let's just use an example. The top 2 lines cancel each other out. The bottom 2 lines are going to score here and there. Who's going to be able to provide that secondary and tertiary scoring, whether it's from the blue line or whether it's from your third and fourth lines? And then ultimately, as we all know, it comes down to goaltending. And I don't know what happened to Woll, but he was playing great, and then he wasn't playing. So that's unfortunate for them too, but I just don't think they got enough from their third and fourth lines. You could argue they didn't get enough from some of their top stars too, but at the end of the day, you need scoring from your third and fourth lines to be successful in the playoffs. Case in point, when we were in Anaheim, our third line was arguably one of the best lines in the playoffs: Paulson, Niedermayer, and Moen. And when you're able to throw out wave after wave after wave, that momentum that you create with that, it builds confidence, and you just create that inertia and that energy in the locker room, that groundswell in your home city, within the fan base, and it becomes contagious.
Chris, we were talking about goaltending. Obviously we've talked about it at length, but there's this philosophy. You look at Vegas last year, Aiden Hill was probably 4th or 5th on their depth chart, depending on where you slotted Jonathan Quick. And is it about the team defense? Is it about goaltending? You look at the formula that you just talked about. You have to have goaltending, certainly, but do you need elite goaltending, or do you need a team that has structure in front of the goaltender, and the goaltender's just got to be good?
I think it depends on how you're building out your team. If you happen to luck out and get a Marty Brodeur or a Patrick Waugh or, a player of that caliber, then, that changes the conversation. But most teams do not have that, and those goalies, I don't know if they even, are in the league right now to that level. And so you look at the way the team plays, the way they're structured, the way you build out your roster, the types of players, what type of team are you going to be? Are you going to be all speed and finesse? Are you going to, be heavy and physical? Are you going to have a mix of it? Are you going to, I think you have to stick to your DNA. You have to stick to how you're building. And if you're building a certain way and it doesn't work year after year after year, you might have to go back to the drawing board. But having said that, as I look at Toronto, in this case, they're not. I actually looked a lot deeper into their roster after they lost, and I'm like, I don't think they're that far off, to be honest with you. Everybody thinks they're probably, dire straits. If they, after next year, 2 $11 million players fall off their roster, they're not going to re-sign Tavares at 11, and they're not going to re-sign Marner at 11. So there's $22 million right there. You've got a number of ailing defensemen that come off the books in Klingberg and Muzzin. You've got a lot of money coming off the books in the next year or two where you can really reshape your team, whether it's through trade or free agency, in picking up and not spending 11 or $12 million on a forward again. You already have those two in Nylander and Matthews. They're getting paid the big bucks to make players around them better. And let them do their job and then fill in the rest of the lineup with that money.
With Chris Pronger, the Canadian content, you still get the Oilers and the Canucks going, and they don't play until tomorrow night, which means the Oilers, they're sitting around for like a week, and the Canucks are sitting around for 5 days plus. I'm sure you've been in a situation like that. How antsy is it in Edmonton, Vancouver right now in the locker room, the dressing room? Like, how much are they just dying to play games right now because they're on a heater and they're feeling good and they got to sit back and wait?
Yeah, I think it depends on leadership. It depends on what the group's like. I know 1 year in St. Louis, I think we had 8 days off after sweeping Dallas, and that was not good for us. Roman Turk was our goalie. He was on fire. He was playing great, and Colorado had gone through 2 really tough series and just went through a grueling 7-game series with the Kings. And you would think we would be fresh and whatever, but when you're in the heat of it, you're not allowing your body to feel sore or to allow any injuries or ailments to bother you because you're just immersed in the playoffs and you're just rolling. Every other day you got a game every other day. Much like Boston last night, they just rolled right in and played the exact same way they did against Toronto and just kind of grinded away. And, I think both those teams play a similar style and an up-tempo style. So I don't necessarily think this is going to affect either team. And from what I gather, the injuries are fairly minimal at best. So they don't really need the time to mend anybody or anything of that nature. They're kind of coming in pretty fresh.
Chris, when you look at some of the teams that are still left, this Colorado-Dallas series looks to me, I think that's 2 juggernauts that, would be cup contenders in my opinion. What do you like about them? Who would you even give the edge to if you've dug into both of those teams, or even just from the surface? What do you like?
I think from the surface, just based on the first round, I think if you're Dallas, you like your goaltending more than Colorado does.
Yeah.
But having said that, it's funny what a series can do for someone's confidence, and knowing you got firepower in front of you and you can outscore your opponent. And I think Colorado, as we learned the year they won the Cup, they still have the horses where they can dial it down a notch and lock down defensively and win tight games if they need it. They didn't last series, but they're going to need to in this series because Dallas, as you mentioned, is very, very well coached, very good, structured, but they got a lot of firepower too, and they can score goals. So that's going to be a fun series to watch.
Prongs, every year, like when the Leafs fail and it doesn't work, and even the current teams, whether it's Makar or Hedman or different stud defensemen, they say you need that stud defenseman back there. Do you agree with that philosophy? You need that alpha dog back there that can log 25 to 30 minutes. I'm sure you'll say yes and give yourself the chance to pump your own tires because you were that guy. So go ahead. Let's hear it.
Well, enough about you. How about me? No, I am a firm believer in it. I think if you look back over the course of the last 30 years, let's just use that time frame. Show me a team that has won, that hasn't had, they may not be the prototypical alpha dog or the prototypical year in, year out, but in that year, I don't look at John Carlson as one of those guys, but the year Washington won, he was that guy. Power play, penalty kill, played 30 minutes, was effective and had a lot of offensive production and played really steady defense. And you got Letang in Pittsburgh. You go back and look, and they might not be like all identical. You got Keith in Chicago. You got Doughty in L.A. You go back to Jersey and Dallas. Like all the teams that have won, Detroit. That's almost the last 20 Stanley Cups right there. And you go back and look, and they all have a stud defenseman or two. But you need at least one.
What about Anaheim?
Oh, we had two. We had one A and one B.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The only one I could think of, Prongs, is the one that you played when you were in Edmonton. I don't think did Carolina have a stud back there, or no?
There's one that might not have.
Not in that. Not in the way we're talking. They had, they just had guys that they had
good by committee. Yeah, it was good by committee,
right?
Yeah, they did it by committee. They you got Hedekin, Wesley. Was Caberlet? No, he wasn't there.
His brother was
Frankie
Caberlet.
Frankie Caberlet was there. Aaron Ward. They Commodore. They had really good team defense where they all played their role. They all could move the puck. They weren't flashy. There was no, I think they might have even rolled 5 guys in the power play of their first unit. So they didn't have anybody that was like head and shoulders of, that's the big guy. But they had everybody that knew their role and played to their identity to a T, which is another reason teams are successful is they know who they are, they play within themselves, and they play to their identity, and they can replicate it game in, game out, series after series, and guys can come in and come out of the lineup, and you don't skip a beat. Those are the teams as we look back, those are the teams that are always successful.
With Chris Pronger, you obviously had a lot of experience playing for the national team, and it's been a long layoff since best on best played each other. I mean, I guess the 2016 Worlds, and it would have been 2014 Olympic Games, but we're getting there. They're going back in 2026. What was the experience like? Knowing that you're a year out, year and a half out. Like, how often would that pop into your mind? Like, obviously, you're focused on your club team and your season and your training and all that. But how often would you think, okay, the Olympics are coming, where am I going to fit here and how's this going to play out?
Yeah, I think it depends on where you are in your career. But as you become a veteran in the league and you kind of know where you fit in and amongst the best players in the game, which is what these tournaments are all about, you get a good read on players that are, going to be there, players that are, good. You want players that are having good years, which is why they usually leave, I don't know if it's 8 or 10 spots open. They kind of have their core group, and then they kind of fill in around them. And they want to probably get a better understanding as to how they want to play. I mean, there's obviously Canadian hockey is pretty simple, but you also want to have players to match up against the opposition, and knowing who's going to be on the other team, and whether you need faster players or whatever the case may be, and what does the arena look like? If you're going to the Olympics, you're going on the big ice surface. If you're playing over here, you're on our ice surface, and you're able to you can change your identity a little bit. But again, it goes back to who you are and what you're all about, and you do kind of think about it a little bit. You look at what the team might look like. There's all everybody and their mother is going to have a list of who they think their best on best is going to look like, and this would be a great lineup or matchup. But, if you recall back in 2014, they tried to put two players together that, you had Kunitz and Crosby, you had Getzlaf-Perry, you had, some of these guys that had played together just to have some familiarity and some continuity in the lineup. And, I don't know if they're going to have that luxury. They'll probably have a little bit more of an all-star team like format like we had prior to that. And then, really it's, I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. All four of those teams are going to be chomping at the bit to get after it. I think it's going to be pretty cool to see.
Absolutely. With Chris Pronger, you think you can get a Journey 44 patch on the Canadian jersey for next year? You working on that or what?
I don't think they're in the marketplace for that just yet, but happy to try.
Yeah. Give it a shot. Why not? How's it going?
Yeah,
a lot of buzz up here.
Never hurts to throw it over the bow, right? And see what happens.
Boy. Yeah. Give it a shot.
Yeah, no, everything's going well. I think we're just plugging away.
Attaboy.
There's a lot of options out there, so just getting brand awareness and getting people to know we're there and try us, and take your pick from there. But no, everything's going really well. We're happy with where we're at and just plugging away.
Attaboy. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Prongs, we'll leave it there. We appreciate you doing this. We'll do it again soon.
You bet. My pleasure. Have fun. Have fun regaling the Leafs.
We will.
Thanks for the last comment. Thanks for the last comment.
Prongs. There's Chris Pronger joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Interesting view, though, like from Chris about the Leafs. And, if you look at their cap structure, it obviously going into next year with the four forwards, with Austin's deal kicking in and he's making more money, and Willie's deal kicking in, he's making more money. They're still really tight with the four of them making as much money as they're going to make. But beyond that, they're committed to Camp, Yarncroke, Reeves, Pontus Holmberg's at $800,000. You got Morgan Riley clearly at $7.5. Then you got McCabe at $2. Timmins at 1.1. Benoit at 1.3. Their goalies are UFAs. Like there really is a lot of opportunity in the next 12 to 18 months.
Are you coming around?
No, I'm not.
Coming around?
It doesn't change the fact that they still have to. I think what he also said is Marner and Tavares, you got to get that $22 million off, and you got to spend the $22 million. Like that's the thing. The phrasing, it isn't that $22 million disappears and it's a dead cap.
Yeah. And by the way, just one thing on Tavares. I've had people constantly come up to me and say, you have to bring him back on a certain 3 or 4 year deal at lesser. And I'm like,
why?
I don't take offense to it, but I'm like, he's a great guy. You gave them $80 million and they haven't won. You don't owe anybody anything. And that's, I think, what you're talking about at the beginning.
Yes.
That stuff is over. Thank you for your time. And you were the captain. You were a great leader on and off the ice. You did your thing. We have to try some different personalities around here. And it's a weird dynamic when you bring a guy that was the captain back and you say, you got to be our fourth line centerman now and just be a role player. That's a weird thing in a locker room. It's weird for everybody. So it's for the people that think they owe it to him because he was the captain of the Leafs and he's going to stick around here and finish his career. Nobody owes anybody anything anymore. No. They've been owed and paid. That's it.
Well,
that's it.
Again, because they haven't had success.
Let's stop this nonsense. Pardon?
Right? Because they haven't had success, that's easier to do.
Wow.
If they had won a cup 2 years ago, everyone would get handouts. Thank you for everything. Here's a lifetime.
Legacy deals.
Here's a legacy deal. Those are gone because it didn't happen. And that's
right.
why, again, I think if they're reading the market correctly, which I'll give credit to Shanahan when he arrived, he did. He was the first guy to finally do it. This market had been pining for it forever. Bottom out and recognize you're not good enough and start from scratch. And he did that. And they got Matthews and Marner and Nylander, and then they started moving in the right direction. It's not. No one wants you to lose. No one wants you to bottom out. It's stale. It has to feel different and look different. And there's no more concerns that if you move off this philosophy, that you moved off prematurely, right? If anything, you really let it soak. Like you really let it soak to the point now where it's concluded. Like we said yesterday, and change is difficult. Change can be lead to some anxiety. You don't know how it's going to play out, but the history has been established. They didn't win anything. So if you do move off these guys, if you do move in a different direction, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to lose in the first round again? It's happened already. Like it's not, if you had won a cup, or if you did this 4 or 5 years ago, I could understand where you'd say, guys, we're not ready to do that. Like we don't want to make premature moves and screw this up. Or hey, it's already happened. They just won a cup 2 years ago. Let's not get stupid and turn.
Yeah, and I'll put my time in for the stop and chats out in public where it's like, go Leafs, go. I'll do my thing. But for people that say they owe it to him because he's a captain, cut that crap out.
They don't know anyone.
That's insane talk.
That's the whole. They got to get away from that. They got to get away from it.
It's not charity. You don't bring people back just because they're good people. And that what you need to do, and I'm sure Tree will do this, management will do this, is you have to get ahead before the wheels do fall off. You don't want to be caught with bad contracts. You don't want to be caught and go, okay, now this guy's 34, 35, and the legs have fallen off and the wheels have fallen off. And, I think you do have a clean slate. The question I would say, and it's easy for a guy like Prongs to shoot from the hip and come on, but it's $22 million coming off the books. You're not just letting Mitch Marner walk.
Although that's a possibility, Jamie. Because what the hell else are you going to do?
Well, again, it's being proactive to figure out what the plan is moving forward. And that's from both sides. Mitch Marner right now controls his own destiny, and, John Tavares does. Different situations. But Mitch Marner is a very valuable asset right now. Very valuable because he's a 95 to 100-point player. If he's healthy.
In his prime. He's 26 years old, 27 years old.
That's my point is, you're not just going, okay, next year, you do what you do, and we're just going to let you walk. I think you've got to figure out the plan moving forward and figure out what it is with Mitch, what he wants to do, what you're going to do with the organization. Because if you don't think that you're going to have $13 million waiting for him or whatever that number is going to be, let's just call it 12, the $1 million raise, then both sides have to figure out what the plan is moving forward, because you're not just letting him go to unrestricted free agency so you can save $12 million and sign two $6 million players. Because it'll be a massive distraction next year. Massive.
Well, that's what's going to be interesting. You're right. Is, again, Tavares is different because he's older.
Right.
Mitch is not. And, if nothing happens over the summer and he shows up day one of camp next year, it's going to be bedlam. It's going to be crazy. Where, with Willie, it was different because, there were reports that it was moving in the direction that it was going to get done, and they're going to figure it out. And Trey Living said it, right? He's like, our priority is to get Willie signed.
Exactly.
We're going to get him signed.
But if nothing's said, again, the plan is going to be laid out.
What if on Friday Brendan Shanahan says, I'm back and my intention is to sign Mitch Marner on July 1st?
Okay. I would.
Well,
how would you react to that?
Soil myself.
Well, I don't know. But what if,
but he
again,
might.
I don't want to get I'm not putting anything in anybody's.
I don't even know why you did
basket.
that. Why would you even bring that up?
Because it's a possibility.
It is a possibility.
They literally publicly said when Tree got here, it was my priority is to sign Austin, and then it was my priority is to sign Willie, and we're going to do it. And everyone's
I'd have
like,
to
all
go
right.
upstairs to my underwear drawer and get my invention and put them on for the show.
I'm just saying, I wouldn't be shocked the way this team operates.
My question would be, what does that look like? What is the
well,
term?
He's not taking a penny less than 10.9. Like that's where it starts for Marner. He's not taking less than he's currently making.
Okay, but let me be the devil's advocate. Let me paint a picture for you guys. He shows up next year, and he starts putting a clinic on, just like Willie did this year.
Jamie, let me stop you right there.
Let me finish here first.
Okay, go
because
ahead. Go
I watch this market fall in love with their players during the regular season all the time.
You're right.
This guy goes on a 20-game point streak. You got to sign him. You got to give him the money. The start of the season last year, we were like, you know what? William Nylander, that's a $9 million player, just like Timo Meier, just like the other 40 goal scorers. 11.5 when it was all said and done because the guy went on a heater, and he was on a 120-point pace. 120-point pace. Ended up with, 97? And listen, he's a 100-point guy. They signed him. He's a part of your core moving forward. My point is people's opinion change, especially as we've talked about in this market, the reset during the regular season. Everyone's playing great. Everyone's looking great. That's where I'm saying that narrative could go.
It's the same as the goaltending. It's the same as the goaltending to me. Excuse me. There is no way on hell that you could have trusted that goaltending tandem heading into the playoffs to get it done, either by injury or performance, and ultimately it cost you. How anyone wouldn't know that is beyond me. And the same goes for Marner's performance. You want to invest more into it and take the chance that he's a non-factor again in another playoff series? What are we talking about here?
That is the playbook, though. Noodles is right that they will shelve it. They will do it quietly. They will agree to terms if this is going to be the play. And they're not dumb enough. They will not announce it on July 1st because they know they know the market right now.
Well, what happened to what we just talked about for the last 48 hours of changing the makeup of the team?
This isn't Shanahan, Pelly, and Tree Living. Last year we were talking about it, and they brought the whole team back. Nothing changed. Dubas wanted out, so he left. Dubas was going to be here. Make no mistake. Dubas was coming back. Shanahan said that. He had offered him a contract. Nothing was going to change. So the play, Noodles, I think you hit the nail on the head. The play is secretly, guys, let's agree to this. Mitch, you better do your part. You better come out flying. And when you do, in November, we'll sneak it out. Mitch Marner signs an extension. Everyone's happy. Hey, it's great. Look at Mitch. He's on pace for 120 points. That's the playbook. And then it's all good. And then doesn't matter what happens in the playoffs because the deal's done, right?
Right.
But yes, that could be what they end up doing.
This all has to be laid out. It's just my point is this all has to be laid out on both sides. If they want, like Mitch Marner, if he wants to stay, I keep coming back to this, and we're not sure. Like Mitch Marner, obviously, drafted here, developed here, from here, family, friends, all of that type of stuff. At some point, he might personally put his hand up and go, I
wouldn't
might
blame
need
him at all if he wanted a fresh start.
He controls that as well. And it's the same situation on the other side. There has to be a plan laid out and they have to work together with it, whatever that plan is. And if the Maple Leafs management says, we don't have $13 million for you here, we might look at a different scenario. Mitch Marner has to be involved in this because he has the right to do it. It's in his contract.
And he's a UFA, too,
and he's
right?
a UFA, exactly.
He can do whatever he wants with his career.
It's a really pivotal offseason for Mitch Marner and the organization based on a really special player that is going to make a lot of money, but you have to decide, do you want him in the fold or do you not? And that is going to be – that's not up to the three of us.
No, exactly. Totally. That's up to them. They'll make that call with him. With the players
exactly.
and his reps, and they'll make the decision. But you look at what's coming off the books. There is a lot of opportunity to mold this team in a variety of different ways.
Yep.
And when the dust settles, you're still going to have Matthews, and you're going to have Nylander. I think you'll have Riley, and you're going to have Nyes. And you're going to have some pieces. But you got to figure out the rest, whether it's free agency, trade, draft, develop. You got to hit all three.
Yeah.
All right, Steve Phillips still to come. Jay's Phillies tonight. His take on what he saw at Manoa over the weekend, the difference in tone with Schneider the last couple of days compared to where he was a week ago, and confirm or deny still to come as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Steve Phillips coming up in just under an hour, 20 minutes away from confirm or deny. A couple games in the Stanley Cup playoffs tonight, the NBA playoffs continuing. You got the draft lottery in about an hour. I wonder who the league really wants to see win this. I feel like Utah might be that team.
Yeah.
Utah's got to get going here, right? They've got the sixth best odds of actually winning it. And you got an owner there that he took the team, he paid a price for it, but he's not getting the same advantage Vegas got, Seattle got, starting from scratch. He's taken on a team that has been poorly run and operated for a long time.
Do you know how rigged that would look if they won that?
I know.
That would look so rigged.
Okay, so from the top five, you guys are looking at that list, right? Montreal, Columbus, Anaheim, Chicago, San Jose. Without any particular order, who would you like to see win?
No, let's go with this. Who do you think deserves it? I personally think that San Jose Sharks team is one of the worst outfits I've seen take the ice. I'm serious.
Yeah, they're horrendous.
Dude, they were – I can't even explain what they were doing out there, but it was not NHL hockey. And if they were doing that to get Celebrini, then you gotta give him Celebrini because that's one of the worst I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So they deserve it. As crazy as it sounds.
Yeah. My stance on it has always been, I know people hate tanking and all that. It's bad for the game. I always think of the fans there that they didn't control that. If you're a Sharks fan and you've been a fan for a long time, you didn't ask your team to completely butcher everything. It sucks. Like the NFL, the way they don't do a draft lottery, if you're last, you get the first pick. And I appreciate that because the fans of the team that sucks that much, they deserve some positivity. Right. And, it's always, then don't tank or don't do this. Someone has to finish last. Even if you're not trying to tank, you could just be horribly run. You could have a terrible owner, a bad GM, bunch of injuries. But I tend to lean towards the hockey markets. Like Montreal getting Celebrini would be that. Like he's a Canadian kid. Another thing is he should be at the Worlds. Why is Pierre-Luc Dubois knocking this kid off that team? That to me is outrageous.
Well,
he got invited.
No, I think Celebrini didn't want to be. Is that what?
No,
I think
he was
wanted
there.
To be,
the way I read it was Celebrini and Fantilli. You're on the team, but if we get reinforcements from the NHL, you're off. And then you can stay if you want.
Well, Fantilli is an NHL player.
I agree. I think what makes the world so cool is Bedard goes and McDavid. The kids go before when it's their draft year. Celebrini's a stud.
I would have said I'll go, but I'm not going with the chance you're kicking me off the team. You either pick me or not.
But even then, why the hell is Pierre-Luc Dubois on the team? Why the hell would Pierre-Luc Dubois be representing Canada the way he was playing?
Whoever said, let's throw that guy an invite, no way. That's wrong.
I know, but I read this differently. I read that Celebrini chose to leave because of the draft tonight.
Why would he? He would have known the draft was happening anyway, though, Noodles. Why would you accept and then choose to leave and go, I forgot about the lottery? Sorry, guys.
I think a teen forward, Macklin, Celebrini, have decided to return to North America ahead of the start of the World's Men's Championship. Celebrini planned to attend Tuesday night's draft. That's kind of I didn't think that.
My understanding
I didn't think he got bumped by PLD. I didn't read it that way. Holy
I believe
smokes,
that's what happened. My understanding is you guys you're in if we can't get other players. And then they got other players and it was that was the understanding before you left. You two are out.
Wow.
And it's complicated because NHL players it's tough to get them there and if they accept. But why is Pierre-Luc Dubois on the team? I know I'm going after him in particular, but the way he got out of Winnipeg, the way he played this year, that guy doesn't deserve to be on Team Canada. But he was horrendous this year.
Yeah.
Horrendous. And put Celebrini on the team. I want to see that kid play. I always think that's really cool when an 18-year-old goes. I remember I've referenced this a ton. The 91 Canada Cup when Lindros was on that team was unreal. So much fun to watch him crush people. He was just a machine.
Dude, do you remember that guy absolutely murdering people on the ice?
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like that. It was like a wrestling scenes every time he went in the corner. It was just like he would strong arm guys and throw them up on the glass.
Yeah.
He was
outrageous.
Crazy. There are European players coming over looking at him being like, what the hell is this? Yeah. See, okay, Dregs tweeted out, both Celebrini and Fantilli were initially accepting their invite with the understanding they may not have a roster spot if more experienced players were made available. So in other words, you can come unless we can get other people, then you're out.
Wow.
And then they were given the option, you can stay around the team or you can return home. And naturally they're like, all right, see you later.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
why would,
I misread that.
That to me is so silly. That to me is so silly. Like, you might technically be a better team, and I get it, you're in it to win it. And like I said, NHL players, veteran guys. And I'm picking on Pierre-Luc Dubois, but I want to see Celebrini over him. I don't think he deserves a spot on the Canadian team.
I can't even believe they decided to ask him. He was a complete no-show this year. Whoever decided that's ridiculous.
Well, I think he's going because he's trying to save his reputation, Noodles. He knows he's in the firing line. He knows what. Imagine Rob Blake, after the season he just had, he calls up Blake and goes, actually, I'm just going to go to the beach. I don't want to keep playing. He had to go. Probably.
Man, oh man. I misread that. Yeah, you're right. Like that's tough. I would like to see the kids play. Now, Nick Paul and Brandon Hagel are good players, so you're going to add to that. Like, it's just
Celebrini on the team.
The other one is tough. That's the thing. It's tough when you see PLD listed there.
Yeah.
If it was Paul and Hagel, you're like, okay, they're bringing legit. Like, Hagel had 75 points.
Hagel was really good.
Like,
Paul's like a third line.
24 goals this year.
Good player. I'd rather Celebrini. I'd rather watch Celebrini play.
Again, Celebrini might be Shane Wright. He might not. He might be a guy that's not a superstar.
He might be.
Keep in mind, Rail, or what was that guy's name? Nail Yakupov was a first overall pick too. Mm-hmm. Now Celebrini seems like he's going to be a good player, but there's no guarantee that he's going to. Slavkovsky, it took a little bit for him to settle in too. Like, these guys aren't McDavid and Matthews and that. Like, they're. Bedard. That's why I was going to go. I think I'd like to see Chicago win it because I'd like Celebrini to play with Bedard. Like, you get two young guys kind of breaking in at the same time or a year apart, right? Like, that would be kind of neat.
Original six. That's what I'm saying. Montreal, something like send them to a place. I don't have anything against San Jose, but I don't know.
He hates
the non-traditional markets.
I swear to God, if San Jose, the word comes up, he puts his head down. He's like, I have nothing against San Jose. And then you just...
a head shake.
Well, they're not a good team. I mean, you just said it. That's one of the worst teams we've ever seen play hockey this year.
Dude, ever, man. I'm sorry.
Horrendous.
They were racking up losses.
Yeah, they're
It's not
terrible.
funny, and I'm not
the other teams.
On.
Let's clarify. Like, Chicago's not any better.
Dude, that's Chicago,
Columbus.
man. They better be aggressive in trying to be better because that Bedard kid... You don't want that kid looking around after next year and be saying this team's going nowhere. So
that's why them getting Celebrini would be huge. Like, it's like, hey, we got a 2-pack here, like 2 guys up the middle of the ice. This is what we're building. It's going to be.
If they don't get Celebrini, they better go get some damn free agents because they need some good players around.
They got to shape.
I love the Foligno story, and he's Uncle Foligno, and he takes care of the boys and stuff. But you better start getting some good players in there because they as much as San Jose we punked on, Chicago was a mess as well.
They've been horrible.
Horrible.
They were horrible trying to get Bedard, and they got him. It worked out for them.
Yeah, they'll get a good player. Like, this draft seems to be, pretty strong. Like, they'll get a good player. Mm-hmm. They've got money to spend. Like, they'll get better. And Bedard, I want to see him healthy. Play 68 games this year? Like, he's a hell of a player. He's going to win Rookie of the Year. Like, that's
he probably will. Yeah, it seems that way. All right, Steve Phillips coming up. Confirm or deny coming up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, confirm or deny. Steve Phillips still to come. Jason Philly tonight. No word on Jamal Murray. If the league's going to do anything, throwing heating pads onto the court last night. Anthony Edwards is a blast to watch play, though.
Turning into that guy. He's that guy.
He is, man. He put on a clinic through 2 games. and they're up 2-0. Like Jokic after the game was like, I don't know, we'll see. He was asked what kind of response do you expect in Game 3, and he just said, we'll see. Now they got championship pedigree. I don't think that series is over, but we know the history in the NBA. If they go down 3-0, it is. You go down 3-0, check, please.
You're in big time trouble. And there was, I told you
trouble.
this a couple of weeks ago, Hayes. There was concern when they drafted him because he made a comment like, I just like video games and the wins and losses don't really bother me. And the people were like, what in the hell is this guy up to? Does he like? And it could have gone either way. It could have gone video games or you become a killer out there, and that's what it looks like he wants to do. And he's one of those guys, and it happens to players, they really like being good. You know what I mean? Like they like taking down KD. They like having the defending champs on the ropes. They love it, and that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
And that's when you get that killer mentality, and it seems like he's got it right now. It's only 2 games, but damn, he looks good, man.
Yeah, it feels like a kind of a changing of the guard. Like the Knicks got past the Pacers last night. I think they're going to win that series. I think Boston's going to roll. But you look at Oklahoma City in the West, you look at Minnesota in the West, you look at Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, you look at Anthony Edwards, like young guys who are, to your point, like they're pushing KD and LeBron and Steph. You're done.
It's a new wave, man.
You're out. Yeah.
What about
finished.
Brunson in New York? Like that
Exactly.
guy's off the charts.
Yes, he is.
I think he's had 40 points 4 games in a row.
He is the man in New York.
God,
It's
imagine
tough.
the bar play on that cat on Broadway.
Outrageous what he's doing in New York.
Just wear a robe to dinner.
Yeah,
that's it.
You're the Jeter. You're basically Jeter in '98.
Yes, on steroids.
Fire.
Right, on steroids. Jeter in the late '90s would have
Oh
just been
my
outrageous. in New York.
God.
Just outrageous.
He had some party tricks up his sleeve, I'll tell
Yes,
you,
he
that
did.
little
Oh, yeah, he
rascal.
Gift baskets,
Yeah,
all
oh,
of
yeah.
that.
Oh, there was
Oh,
other
yeah.
stuff.
There was a lot of stuff going on with
was-
Wow, did he have a
captain.
send-off treatment, the captain?
Yes. Number 2, Derek Jeter. Number 2. All right, final hour coming up. Steve Phillips will join us and confirm or deny. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.